All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We are back with another session here of tips from Tom, where we are going to cover the rent control decision that is pending and coming up. So today we have 𝗪cie𝗿𝗆𝗆, who is on the other side, who wants your no vote from the Hoboken United Tenants. She is a local business owner, lives in Hoboken, and she's here to kind of answer any questions that we have and run through their side of this platform. Of kind of where their stance are. I think we're very clear as to where everybody's stances are. But she's, her job here today is to educate everybody on why a no vote is going to help, continue to control tenant rents and help out the tenants inside of our city of Hoboken. And again, guys, same platform here, same rules. We're going to keep questions here and keep this thing about facts and education, keep questions to the subject. The goal here is to educate as many people as possible. And I realized yesterday, after I rewatched video, I didn't actually get into a little bit more about who I am, right? So a little bit about my background here. I live in Hoboken. I am a father of two. I'm raising my family here. I am a Hoboken fire captain, a real estate agent. I have been living in Hoboken going on 16 years. So a lot of ties to Hoboken. My wife's whole family are all born and raised here. And being on the fire department gives me a ton of ties to Hoboken. So I understand kind of, and I've been through this stuff before, these rent control movements and these questions. So this is not the first time I've experienced this. But again, guys, this is about education. I've built my real estate business. I'm priding myself on educating. As I taught in Jersey City for 4.5 years. So I very much value the education process. And no matter who you're voting for in this upcoming election on Tuesday, I've always felt it is very important to be educated on the entirety of the subject, get the whole picture, and make a decision that's built and works out for you and your family. End of story, right? So with that, 𝗪cie, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for agreeing to jump on here. I know that there's been a lot of back and forth. I know that you are very busy as well, with a whole other career. This is not all that you do. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and kind of how you got involved in this movement?
Yeah, Tom, thank you for having me on. Yeah, like you said, I am a small business owner. I have lived in Hoboken going on 8 years. I'm originally from California. I wound up in New Jersey. Just that's sometimes how life goes. I used to work in 𝗔𝗀𝗃𝗏. I spent 10 years working in the sports industry, and I used to work for the NBA. So I was
cool.
I was an event planner for the NBA. A cool job, not exactly, a six-figure hedge fund career, but you get to meet basketball players and travel the world. I loved it.
Yep.
I stumbled upon a skill set of we'll talk about supply and demand later, Tom, but I realized that there's not a donut shop in Hoboken. No one is making organic, handmade donuts. And so I went on YouTube like we do and taught myself how to make donuts. I'm entirely self-taught. I got really good at it. And in 2022, without a financial safety net, no financial backing, no real business plan in place, I quit my job to sell donuts full time. So that's what I do.
Wow.
I deliver donuts on my bicycle around Hoboken every Friday, although I took today off so that I could do this. One of the benefits of being your own boss, right? I get to say,
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with that.
Take the day off.
I see that side.
Plus, a little late night out for Hoboken or for Halloween last night. But
Yep.
And so that's really that is what I do. Absolutely none of that makes me qualified to talk about the rental market in New Jersey, but here I am. I'm just a passionate passionate person. I care deeply about the community of this town. It's become my home. I found my apartment on Craigslist. To be honest, didn't even know it was rent controlled until about 2 months ago. I just have a really great landlord and I have a great situation. But this town, I love what Hoboken is all about. And you know it very well. The born and raised community is passionate about this little city. While we're close to Manhattan and we're, borough-like, this is a very small town. When you live here, you know that everybody knows everybody. And it's a very densely packed but beautiful little city that I care deeply for. So that's why I'm here. I learned about the the compromise that our city council was going to do back in August. That was the first I'd really heard of it. I saw on Reddit, and literally no one told me to do this. No one's paying me to do this. I just joined that Zoom call that night, as did 60 other Hoboken residents, and a little movement was born. So that's kind of.
So the compromise that you're talking about with the city council, right? That's Ron hit briefly on that yesterday in the interview with him about there was an agreement in place at some point between the council and to make some significant changes to rent control. Is that right?
Okay. There was, and one of Ron and the MSTA's points in this little battle is they love to talk about how this is a political win for a lot of our politicians in town, that they're able to back the no vote and pretend that they are care about this, but they're only doing it to garner votes, and yet the city council was fully on the side of compromising with the MSTA. The problem that what I felt and what many residents feel, and where this is probably the problem, a larger problem when it comes to like representative government, is that it's not honestly representative if the compromise is being done by 9 individuals on behalf of 65% of Hoboken rents. So when they're making that compromise on behalf of everyone, well, we said we know that this compromise still hurts tenants. We would rather take the thing to a vote. So we individually, none of us knew each other prior to that, really. We basically convinced the city council to turn down the compromise that night and push the referendum to the ballot so that all of the city could voice their opinions, which is what democracy is.
Sure. Now, the other side of that argument, right? And we'll go back and forth in these discussions, right? The other side of the argument is the council's job is also to, as a business owner in town yourself, is also to take care of businesses and make sure that, there is a thriving business community inside of the town. And the real estate industry is very much a business in and of itself, right? So these landlords have careers to make. They've decided to make their living by diversifying their portfolio. And some of them have made their living by inheriting portfolios and things like that. So there is another side to that representation as well, right? So the council's job was trying to manage both sides of this thing.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Trust me, we can get into it, and I'm sure whenever they join the comments, they'll take a dig at my business ownership. That you don't really come at someone who named their business Do Good. I can promise you that. This is where you'll learn quickly what, again, we can talk about what Hoboken United Tenants is. It's a completely volunteer group of people who live in this town, who, again, came together after that Zoom compromise vote. We just, a few of us who happen to know each other said, hey, there's a WhatsApp group. Do you want to join it? And a bunch of random people who've never met before joined a WhatsApp group. And we threw together a PAC so that we could legally try to combat the bankrolling of our opponents. Okay.
So you guys have your own PAC fund then at this point. I mean, it's obviously self-supported and everything else, but there is a PAC fund. Okay.
There is a political action committee that we created because, again, we wanted to be on the up and up. We wanted to be able to create, mailers, Facebook and Meta ads, anything that might cost money, but you need to legally, in a political campaign, raise the funds legally. So we wanted to obviously make sure we were following protocol. But other than that, we are volunteers. I'm using, I'm not a public relations expert by any means. I'm using Canva to create social media content. I'm filming myself. I'm doing this in between my job and having a life, as all of us are. And again, me personally, because you're talking to me today, I am sitting here representing Hoboken United Tenants, but once again, it's not a dues paying membership. I'm literally just a Hoboken resident who happens to be a renter in a rent controlled unit. Certainly that.
Now let me talk to me a little bit. You're in a rent control unit, right? And the demographic of members of your organization, are they made up largely of people that are in rent control units that are just, oh my God, I don't want my rent control to go away, or I'm nervous about what is the demographic makeup of your organization?
There is a mix. I think majority of people are in rent controlled units.
Okay.
I will speak entirely for myself.
Hmm.
Even if the referendum passes, I'm not afraid for myself. I have a really great landlord. I'm not like anti-landlord as they love to paint.
Hmm.
I'm sure you want to talk about society at large. Yeah, absolutely. Abolish rent, but like we can't do that. So in this reality that we live in, I have a great landlord. I have a situation that I benefit from, certainly. But I'm not making $200,000 a year, and I'm certainly not paying less than $1,000 in rent. I think
Fair.
yeah, to be fair, and I can't speak for everyone else in our organization. I
Okay.
think again, we're not politicians. We are not running
Hmm.
for anything. We're not even on the rent control board.
Yep.
We're people who meet at the Wilton House once a week and and talk over beers and
Love that.
sit in Church Square Park and try and talk to our neighbors. So um, I'm trying to also, like, yes, I represent Hoboken United Tenants in the vote no, but I also represent myself.
Sure.
So yeah.
So let's go. Let's jump in then. Let's jump in. And guys, for anybody that's just joined us, we've got 𝗪cie𝗿𝗶𝘆, who is speaking today on behalf of the Hoboken United Tenants organization, who wants your no vote for the referendum on the ballot for Tuesday. Yesterday we had the yes side. Today we're going to have the no side. And again, this is purely about an educational standpoint to make sure that you understand everything that you're voting on. Emily,
Yeah.
as rent control stands right now, talk to us a little bit about the proposed changes, comparatively speaking, to what is the current setup for rent control.
So the proposed changes, if the yes vote passes, if the referendum passes, what will happen is rent control will be effectively eliminated across the city. So now one of the talking points that they try to push in their campaign is that anyone under current rent control protection will maintain their rent control protection. So let's use me as an example. If the
Sure.
yes vote passes, I am still under the same rental agreement that my lease states. Correct?
Right, and the state of New Jersey is extremely strict. The overwhelming majority of laws in New Jersey are built to protect tenants.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, if my landlord, again, like I said, we have an amazing relationship. If she
Hmm.
decides to say, haha, Emily, I've been waiting for this to happen.
Hmm.
My son is going to move into your apartment, or I need to, whatever reason, because I can
Yep.
tell you that I am not personally looking to move out. Um, Currently, my income and financial situation doesn't allow me to move into any of the current available units in Hoboken. Um, and I love my apartment. So, but again, if for whatever reason the referendum passes, the rent control protections remain for rent control tenants so long as they stay in their unit. The minute
Hmm.
that the unit is vacated, that is what we are calling the vacancy decontrol. The
Hmm.
landlords can now charge whatever, and I mean whatever they want. There's no such thing as a mythical market rate, right? There's a CPI spreadsheet that you can refer to, but there's not like an actual market rate that a landlord would pull up and say, well, she's living in this bedroom type of building and this.
Well, and the agents as an advisor, right? The way that I
Mhm.
come to pricing, the way that I come to pricing, whether it be selling a condo, selling a building, or renting out any unit, is based on what the market will bear, right? So we do compare units, right? You're in
Sure.
a 800 square foot 1 bedroom apartment. Those are renting between these prices, comparatively speaking, to okay, you've got air conditioning, you don't. You've got washer and dryer in the building, you don't, right? So
Yeah.
while I understand there's not a set number, right? You're absolutely right. There's not a set number, but and to your point, landlords do get a lot of power back when this thing if this thing passes and they can decontrol the unit to get it to whatever the market will bear, whatever, and a unit is only worth as much as somebody's willing to pay for it.
Sure. Um, and we can come back to, because I do have apartments.com pulled up right here. We can
Yep.
talk real literal
Yeah.
numbers, like what does an 800 square foot bedroom currently rent for in Hoboken? So if whatever reason my landlord found a reason for me to vacate my apartment,
Hmm.
again, and this is what I understand the complaint. I understand the economics 101. I'm not ignorant to economics 101.
Sure.
I understand the complaint about rent control and how it limits supply because you have people who are remaining in units, because why would we leave? I can understand that. But for whatever reason, even if I wanted to leave, I'm now opening up apartments.com and looking at the market available to me.
Mm-hmm.
A 1-bedroom apartment. I can't, we can get into it because I have this pulled up in front of me. The cheapest apartment in all of Hoboken right now is $2,100 a month.
Right. And the average of the last 3 months, I've got the numbers in front of me that I've pulled from the MLS as early as probably 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And the way that we as advisors and agents come up with our number, right? We typically look about 3 to 4-ish months. In the rental market, maybe you only have to go back a month to get enough comparables. But let's go 3 months. The average 1-bedroom has been $3,019, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a 1-bedroom apartment in Hoboken, right? That's the average. That's the average over the last 3 months for all rented. I didn't set square footage or anything like that. Now that also takes into account, luxury buildings that are listed on the MLS. So Maxwell buildings obviously don't compare to a 4-story tenement building, but the average overall is $3,000 a month, which is high, right? I think we can all agree. Anybody can agree on both sides of the fence here that this is very high.
Right.
The overall rental.
Yeah, I think the general, budgeting idea is that we should spend 20% of our income on housing. Yeah. So I'm not good at math. This is not my expertise. So somebody do that quick math for me, but $3,000 is 20% of what kind of income? Yeah. So if you're dropping, if I'm a single
significant
person, it's a lot of money. So even this idea that someone is high earning, what does high earning mean in the economy in 2024? Because we have to also look at that. What does high earning really mean in the New York metro area in this year? Even if I am making $150,000 myself as someone who lives alone, after taxes, I'm pulling in $110,000, still an absolute blessing and a privilege in this world.
Mm-hmm.
People have much less, but 20% of that is, we can do the math, but it's not $3,000.
It's right, but I think we could really get into the weeds on the way that these numbers work, right? And I see the chat box is fired up, and I appreciate you guys throwing out some comments there, right? Because we'll have some discussions and hit some of these questions as we go through this.
Yeah.
But I think what we want to focus on here, right, is currently as it stands right now, the rent control policy in Hoboken is that for every vacancy, you can get a 25% increase on that rental number once every 3 years. Correct. Once every 3 years, right? So if you vacate multiple back-to-back years and you used it on the first vacancy, you don't get that second. You don't get a vacancy decontrol 25% every single time. Correct. This referendum would effectively remove that decontrol completely, and you can go to market rent based on a $2,500 contribution to the Affordable Housing Fund or the trust fund, right? So they get to make a contribution. Their place now goes on the market for, we'll call it market rent because that's we're going to refer to, but I understand what you're saying. It's not a set price. It'll go on. They'll be able to ask. They can ask whatever they want for the apartment, right? So effectively taking what was an affordable housing unit, right, and now putting it on at rent at full rent. So there is that small increase for you as a tenant, right? And as a tenant myself in Hoboken, we also incur increases are allowed yearly increases of 5% or the CPI, whichever one is lower.
Correct.
Right. So that would also in turn go away with the current proposed referendum. There would be no, is my understanding, and I may be wrong here, correct me if I'm wrong, there would be no percentage increase, or would that percentage increase stay put?
No, there would be no, it's complete vacancy decontrol, complete. So
when it goes vacant, but I'm saying the current, but a tenant in place allowed raising of rent. What is that number based on? Is that does the 5% or or CPI stay in place?
To be honest, Tom, I don't know.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay.
I don't
fine.
know. You know, and that's one of my, you know, I'm really nervous to sit here and talk to you because I'm not an expert, Tom.
Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. We're having a discussion.
I don't want to look at the chat. I know how mean people get when it comes to their money, and I don't want to see it. But I don't know, Tom. I'm not an expert, and
Okay.
I sit here talking.
So let's do this then.
Well,
let's do this then. Yeah, let's get back. Let's kind of reel it in. And Emily, I appreciate you jumping on here, right? I know that you're not an expert on any of this by any means, and I know that you're volunteering your time, so it's not something I take lightly. So let's talk about you know, kind of where your guys' concern, where your movement's concerns are. Then let's talk about the reason you think a no vote is the correct vote for the people that are watching or listening. Right, because this will go into podcast form as well, and be circulated. But let's talk about why you think that the no vote is the way to go.
A no vote is the only way to save rent control in Hoboken. Full stop. So to me, it comes down to who do we believe, I guess, deserves. Which again, I really dislike the word deserves because I know that was thrown around a lot yesterday, that any of us are more deserving of like living here or whatever. But at the end of the day, do we believe that the people who own property in this town are the people who deserve or are, I don't really have a better word than deserve right now, of, you know, the benefit from getting rid of rent control. So if this passes, you can throw the economics attack at me, the supply and demand attack at me. You can throw the idea that again,
Emily, my goal is not throw any attacks, right?
I know. A little Miss Defensive.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
I really hate to say it, like it's a moral issue to me. You're telling me that I have to, and again, I am a business owner, so we can talk about that. But when you're telling me that I have to worry about someone's investment portfolio,
not your problem.
Not my problem.
Frankly, I agree with you. That's the complete separation. While I understand they have a right to make money, it's their investment portfolio is certainly not your concern. You have your own stuff that you have to worry about.
It is. And so I reiterate that 65% of Hoboken is a rental market. You know, like 65% of the units are rentals. So even if you give me 35% are property owners, even what percentage of that are, you know, landlords and multi-property owners. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's a vote yes is removing rent protections, full stop. It gives landlords the incentive to find themselves with vacant units so that they can relist them on the market. You're right, whether it's just to lift it to what the market bears or not. All it does is it lifts the bottom half, the bottom end of our already very expensive rental market. The average one bedroom is, like you said, well over
3,000. Yeah, $3,019 a month for a one bedroom, and that's over the last 3 months. Those averages year over year. A year ago, they were not much movement. A year ago, they were of the 660 units leased in a year, 2998 was the average, and now it's moved up over the last 3 months. It's 3,019. So not a ton of movement, but still a very high and very aggressive rental market. As somebody who is in the rental market regularly, it is very aggressive, right? There's no doubt about that. But and the truth is, people that are fortunate enough to land a rent controlled unit, it's why they don't leave, right? Because they see the rental market. There's no secret how aggressive this market in Hoboken. We are one of the more desirable cities in the state to live in. Between accessibility into the city, things to do, the amount of money that has come in, that has come into this place in terms of parks and resources from the city. He's done an excellent job over the last few years. I went from somebody who moved here just after college, and we used to describe it to my friends as college with money, to now watching this place turn into Stroller Town, USA. And I'm one of the strollers now, right? Because I'm one of the people that have to park my stroller with the kids on the sidewalk. So yes, there has been a significant shift in demographic. There has been a lot of money that's come into this place. And to the other side's argument, there's been a lot more money that in terms of higher salaries that have come into this place over the time. But it's why on your stance, and you and I have had discussions about this. My understanding is your stance is why it makes it even more important to protect these rent control units, to make sure that they are available for people that aren't making the $250,000 finance bros over in the city, right? The $2,500 and this trust fund.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what your guys' argument is on that and your guys' stance on that. I know that you guys are pretty passionate about kind of the use of that money, the earmarking of that money and things like that. Tell us a little bit about where you guys stand on that.
So absolutely. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund already exists. If you were to ask around City Hall, ask around any of the players that you know in the city, no one can point you to anything. The folks who sit on the rent control board don't even know, no one I've spoken to can point me to what this fund actually means, who runs it, who operates it, what it's supposed to be allocated for.
Sure.
So one of my questions when we use the term affordable housing is, what does that mean? I've spoken to someone on the streets who is voting yes. And one of the things he said as a property owner is that he didn't want to subsidize government housing. So I want to make it very known and very clear that the Hoboken Housing Authority, which is the government subsidized housing projects in town, are not under rent control. That is literally government subsidized housing.
Right. There's funding attached to percentages of, there's funding to the city attached to percentages of subsidized housing, guys. So that's, you can't, you have to separate the two from rent control versus, the housing, the Hoboken Housing Authority. Yeah. You separate the two.
So and Tom, since you live here, you know very well that as much as we want to say that there's a supply issue, there is no shortage of development going on in this town.
Sure.
We can talk about what's going up across from ShopRite. We can talk about the Devon that just opened up on the southwest side of town, the new building that's going to open up down the street, the factory that just mysteriously burned down, and now we're going to get.
I was there for, spent an entire night of my life there. So yeah, I remember that. I remember that place burning quite well.
And we're going to have luxury units up in 3 years' time. The Hoboken Point building just went up not too far from where I live. They're putting up, thank goodness they're putting up elderly care or, affordable units for elders in the town across.
They finally approved that. Right. Yeah. And I saw that they've made a move and that's the first affordable housing unit the city's built in. I forget the exact number. I remember seeing it, but the first affordable housing unit that the city is invested in building new in quite some time. And frankly, I think we can all agree on that too. It's been too long.
Yeah.
Right. So while the city can, and the council can argue about the structure of rent control and everything else, I think everybody here, both sides of the fence, can also agree that it has been too long since the city has addressed the affordable housing needs, and whether it be through the Hoboken Housing Authority or affordable housing, which they finally approved for seniors, there is a significant slip there.
Absolutely. And so that's one of the things that I'm trying to communicate across. So again, when we talk about affordable housing, for all of these developments that we just discussed, they tore down the Burlington coat factory. That will be condos soon. There's no shortage of development happening in this town, but I forget exactly what the rules are. I think every building has its own, when they sit across from the zoning board and the planning board, they have to allocate a certain amount of affordable units in every luxury condo building that goes up. Each one of those units is actually means tested. So they are means testing for those affordable units. But when we talk about, if you look at, say, the Devon, the DEVAN that just went up on the backside of town, it is near nothing. It is not a desirable location. It's on the backside of a very broken down road near a light rail train track. It's not near bars, restaurants, grocery stores. It's pretty much a desert back there. But the cheapest unit, their studios are going for $2,800 a month.
Yeah.
So even if you were to say an affordable unit in that building, I don't know what the affordable units would be going for, but let's probably say it's like 2,100 on, if my guess would be
My
accurate.
guy, I would
Who
think
knows?
it's probably, yeah. There's a formula there that gets you to a number based on income and things like that, I'm sure.
Sure. And so again, once again, it's means tested. But it still doesn't address, like you said, in my mind, yes, we need an entire development of affordable housing. We don't need more granite countertops and doormen and you know shuttles to the path station. We need affordable housing. So this trust fund, again, then we can talk about what the yes vote means.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, if a tenant chooses to leave their unit once the vacancy decontrol hits, first
Mhm.
off, the landlord has to prove that the tenant left on their own will and right.
Accord, yep. Yep.
So we have to just trust that that's the true and accurate telling.
Yep.
And then it's just a one-time $2,500 fee. So if $2,500 doesn't even get you 1 month's of rent in this town, how many, and even I'm not a developer or a construction magnate, but how many units would have to be vacated in order to build even one affordable unit? So we're talking about something completely hypothetical. First off, the $2,500 is almost kind of like a slap in the face of development in this town and what it costs to build. It also doesn't take into account the long, arduous process of Hoboken's politics, sitting across from zoning boards, planning boards, city council meetings, people fighting your development. So we're hypothetically building affordable housing when?
Fair. Right. And you bring up a good point, right? Is the timelines here are tough. And frankly, the contribution timelines are tough, right? Because anybody that's in an affordable housing unit, as we've spoken about, they're not leaving anytime soon. Let's assume they're not leaving anytime, right?
Sure.
What do we talk about, right? Diapers, diamonds, divorce, and death, right? Are the ways that people sell and the reasons that people move, right?
Yeah.
So without a significant life event, these affordable housing units people are going to stay in those units for quite some time. So
And
that's
so,
a
and
fair point.
and I can only say from my personal feelings, I don't want to move because I like my apartment. You know what I mean? It's not just so much also that like you said, the diamonds, diapers, death. I
Mhm.
I don't have any of those on my plate. So, they can call me a single cat lady, but I have a dog, but you know what I mean? I genuinely like where I live. I like the part of town where I live. I have a good apartment. It's not cheap. You know what I mean? I'm not paying
Sure,
$800. I still pay what I think is a
sure.
very um
And I
and
think, to your point, right? And I don't mean to cut you off, but I
no,
don't want to lose my train of thought
no,
here, right?
no.
Is I think the common misconception about the rent control is that everybody that's under rent control is paying $800, significantly less than market rent. And I know for a fact that I have friends and family who are in rent controlled units that are paying significantly, if not, at or above market rate, right?
Yeah,
If you do, and there is a way, guys, for a landlord to get a form of decontrol after owner occupancy and everything else. And we're not going to dive into the weeds there. Frankly, if you need to figure out how to get that done, you should have a conversation with the rent control board to decontrol before you vacate your unit from owner occupancy, so you can get to what is considered market rate. But landlords will increase rent. And if they do the rent calculation, they may be increasing less than what they actually are allowed to, because again, they're going to increase based on what the market will bear. But some of these units, the legal calculated rent that fall under rent control, the legally calculated rent they can't get for their unit. And that's the truth. I've seen it. That's not a factual. That's not a make it up thing or a speculation. I have actively seen units where their legally calculated rent is more than the market will bear for that unit.
yeah.
So the misconception of everybody that's on it, that the rent control is everybody is low, is exactly that. It's a misconception.
Correct.
There are routes.
So that's ultimately, again, it comes back to that. We live, obviously it's a spectrum. We
Mhm.
don't have, no one has the data. The yes group and the no group, no one has the data, first because landlords aren't reporting all of their rent. The yes
Mhm.
group loves to point that out as well. That's not going to change. The landlords are not reporting their units. But it is, that Venn diagram that they love to show of, high earner, very low rent. I would be generous and even give you like 1,000 people. I'll give you 1,000 people who make $250,000 and pay $800 in rent. That's a
Mhm.
myth in my head, but I'll just be generous and say, sure, 1,000 people have that. But I guess, again, the argument that rent control limits the supply in the market, that somehow if rent control goes away, then there will be what's like some magical supply of units that drop
Of
into the market.
units, yeah.
Yeah, where are they coming from? See, the only way that those are becoming available, I guess, is if the landlords who now have an incentive, again, find themselves with open apartments. But then we have to then trust the landlords after paying a one-time $2,500 fee to
Sure.
to be fair, again, when they have no limits on what they can charge. We really do. We live in a spectrum where we don't have the data, so all we can do is kind of like hyperbole or fear mongering on either side. And so I think again, it just comes down to, um, is rent control perfect? I don't think there's a perfect system of any kind in this world for anything.
It's
There are
fair.
people who disagree with every system in every industry across the globe. Um, but rent control, full stop, keeps tenants protected in a town that is well over the majority renters. And at the end of the day, like I said, it's not our job to subsidize the portfolio values of our landlords. They took a
Sure.
risk by owning property in Hoboken, and then we can also talk about. I'm happy to talk about the mom and pop landlords that you and I probably both know.
Yep.
The people who inherited buildings, the people who literally can't charge more rent because they don't have updated buildings. They're on fixed incomes. They're widows. I know personal people who fall under that portfolio or profile, but
Sure.
um, it's
So
it's a spectrum, Tom. It really is.
I agree with you, right? And you said something key, and I hit on this yesterday, guys. Was and for those of you guys who are just logging in and joining us, I've got 𝗪cie 𝗿𝗀𝗆 here. She's from the Hoboken United Tenants, speaking a little bit about why they believe that the no vote is the way to go on the current question that's coming up on Tuesday's election. So get educated, read as much as you can, and get out and vote on Tuesday, no matter which side you stand on. Make sure that you get out and vote. So I'm going to kind of start to watch this box here. I've been watching it, but I'm going to watch it for some for pointed questions, guys. Again, keep this to the subject. But to your point, 𝗪cie, I don't think rent control currently in its current form is perfect. And I think that we can agree on that. And I think that everybody involved can agree on that. In its current form, it is far from perfect. Is it working for the current tenants and working for the current city and the current structure? Yes. Does there have to be changes? I absolutely think so. And I think someplace between a hard no in just not making any changes, and between that and the yes of the ability to completely decontrol your unit upon vacancy, I think someplace in the middle there is probably an answer. The bigger question is, how do we get to that point, right? And there needs to be some kind of discussion about how do we fix it, right? How do we move forward after this? Because the bottom line is this issue has brought to light, and you guys have done an excellent job at getting your message out and getting your voices heard but what you've also done is you've put rent control very much on the forefront of people's minds.
Sure.
And I think to not take this opportunity to keep the momentum,
Yeah.
to find a solution and a way through to the other side, it would be a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a big thing here as we start to work through this as well.
I agree. I spoke at the city council meeting last week, and it's one of the things that I said. Look, I am not a politician. I don't have the thick skin to be a politician. I don't enjoy this smear campaign. It's not enjoyable to me. I like when people like me. You know what I mean, dude? I make donuts, and I like to do good in this community, and I really love Hoboken. And ultimately, at my core, I just believe we have to do what we can that's best for the community at large. And
Sure.
if the people who own lots of property and are really concerned about their portfolios have enough time to be concerned about their portfolios and not whether or not they can afford rent or like put food on the table, then again, they're not the victims in my head here. And if they want to work with me, I put my face out here because I do. I believe in community over
Hmm.
everything. People over profit, community over everything. Even our politicians, they don't like that, like they have their issues with me for many reasons. They're not like my
Yep.
cronies.
Yep.
I'm just a citizen. And so anyone who wants to try and make Hoboken a better place, then let's do it. Um,
Yep.
so I think like one of the things to think about when it comes to the Vote Yes campaign is to look at their motivations.
Well, their
Who's
motivation,
pushing?
their motivation, they're doing a job too, right? And that's the other side of this, right? You guys are a volunteer, grassroots organization, right? Make no mistake, right? Ron admitted this yesterday. He's a we'll call him a hired gun, right?
Mhm.
He's a for hire organization, right? So he's
Mhm.
doing his job. He
Yeah,
was brought in by owners, by property owners in Hoboken. He was brought in to do a job, and he's doing his job. Um, and his job is to try and get this thing passed. So we've heard a lot about strong laws protecting tenants from harassment. As a Hoboken resident, does Emily feel most tenants have the time, money, and knowledge to fight harassment?
Um, no, absolutely not. I mean, Tom, you've got kids. I don't even have kids, but regardless of what it is, the modern life in Hoboken is very busy. So if no, full stop. I don't believe that
I
people.
agree with you. I think that there
It's
needs to
scary.
be there needs to be more education out there. There needs to be more resources available. I understand that, and I think I've seen her on here. Cheryl is in the chat someplace, but she's an excellent resource for helping renters and everything else. But the truth is that there are probably a number of renters who slip through the cracks just because they don't understand where these resources are available.
Yeah,
So discussions like this to get it to the forefront and to make sure the resources are readily available, and then they're always readily available. So let me kind of run that back, right? They are always readily available, but to make
right.
sure that people understand where they can find the resources
Yeah,
is important for them. So
exactly.
with that, I agree. I don't think that everybody has the time and the money and everything else to fight harassment. I think that if it were to occur, the easy answer is no. Not everybody has that time, money, and resources to fight that. And the overwhelming majority of people will probably just say it's easier for me to walk away than it is to fight this.
Correct.
And that's the truth. So, Matt, what kind of changes do you want to see, Tom? The reality is that Hoboken rent control is weak, generous to landlords. Do you want to weaken it further? No, I don't want to weaken it further. Let's be very clear, right? There's no way I want to weaken it further. The changes that I would want to see, I'd like to protect the smaller guys. I think that landlords who have owned buildings forever, right, who have had a tenant in there forever, when that place goes vacant, should they be able to get to market rent? It's a discussion for another day. It's tough to say. Should they be allowed to? Should they have to charge? Go from let's say $700 a month for a 2-bedroom, whatever it is, to only being able to charge what is that? And let's call it an extra $100 a month, right? I'm not going to do the math off the top of my head, right? 700 plus the 25%, right? So $75, $80 extra a month. No, and that's why I think that rent control, I think it does favor the tenants, in some cases, and that being one of them. And is that an outlier? Yeah, probably. But I think that something needs to be done to help those landlords get some kind of money back into their systems, right? Because these are people that have owned the buildings forever, who are significantly undervalued on their rent.
Like again, I have a former customer. I don't think she'll ever buy from me again, but she's again born and raised in Hoboken, lives in an 8-unit building that is out of date. Both sides on either side of her building are new developments.
Mhm.
And she, you know, her husband died unexpectedly young. Her, fixed income. But again, you're living in an eight. I don't even want to use her because I love her, even though she probably don't love me no more. But it's tough. Her two grown adult children also live in the building, and I know that she's a great landlord. And so, I do believe that there are hardship requests that landlords can submit. So if
Mhm.
they literally are underwater on their investment, and obviously, again, the small mom and pops aren't necessarily like our investment people. We're talking about a few who inherited, or a
Mhm.
few who bought in the 70s and 80s when it was dirt cheap. But there is a hardship clause or something, I do believe, where they can actually apply to you know increase their rents more, or receive some kind of subsidy. I'm not exactly sure, but there is
Mhm.
some kind of hardship.
So there are resources. There are resources for the hardship for those types of landlords in that regard. Then.
Yeah.
All right. So, and again, I think that this is, I think that this discussion is good. I think the discussion needs to be ongoing.
Yeah.
I, I think that there needs to be changes, and to the rent control. I don't think that $2,500 is a large enough number. But I think that it's a start. My understanding though is that they had agreed to a higher number, or there was a discussion and a negotiation that went on, that the city council was involved in negotiating a number down. So the bottom line is, guys, there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that we are not even privy to. But our job is to get educated on it and figure out as much as we can. And I think Emily's done a great job, and her organization has done a great job, or their organization, it's not hers, right? But their organization has done a great job of doing as much as they can to get the information out there. There is a lot of misinformation out there. There is a lot of stuff going on regarding this vote. It's a very divisive situation. Unfortunately, in a world where politics in general can be very divisive. So
Yeah.
with that, I don't see necessarily any direct questions here for myself or for Emily. We'll answer everything, as much as we can. I'm not in the habit of answering something that I don't know the answer to, but I will certainly take a stab. But if there's nothing else, I'll give it another second here. Do you have anything else that you want to add, Emily, before we kind of wrap up here?
Yeah, I think, just again, it's for me, it just feels so deeply like a moral thing. We live in a very imperfect world. Our economy is very fraught and expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ron said yesterday, I did hear this clip of, like wages are on the rise, and I go, whose? you know, it's
Certainly not entrepreneurs.
again, and they love to say, it's housing is a human right, and I think that, like, part of landlording is that, yes, it's a business for you to have a property and a
Mm-hmm.
portfolio and all of that, but you are also providing housing. And I think that if we're putting someone's portfolio above, like, the act of providing housing for people, like, you lose me. um,
Mm-hmm.
we we are all deserving, regardless of where our life took us. Some people are not
Mm-hmm.
motivated by money. Some of us didn't chase high earning careers. Some people are teachers, nonprofit workers, students. Not everyone is chasing a portfolio. Not everyone is
Sure.
even chasing home ownership. Some of us are fine to rent. So
Sure.
we just want to make sure that just because we don't want to move up and out, that it doesn't mean that we're not,
Sure.
this is where I come back to, like, the word deserving. No one is more deserving just because they, for however life got them to have more money, doesn't make
Good.
them more deserving of living in this town or any town.
Yep. I agree. Here's a good one. I'm going to throw it up, and we will wrap. We will kind of go through this stuff, because I'm intrigued to hear, as a boots on the ground person like you are, what is the pulse that you're kind of hearing, and be honest here. You've been very good about it, but I don't want to just hear that. Oh yeah, it's definitely going to pass. What is the pulse here? What's kind of the general feedback, the public feedback that you've gotten in being involved in this as you have been?
Um, I've had a few doors slammed in my face, but generally people are receptive. Um, I pride myself. I'm not from here, but through my business, I've put myself very deeply in the community. I know a lot of
Hmm.
people. I talk about these things on my business account, which I know is like a no-no to some people, but I talk about politics. I talk about, things that involve this city and the people that live here. Um, and the response that I receive is pretty great. I'm not
That's cool.
nervous per se. I feel pretty confident, but you know,
But we'll see.
we'll see.
Tuesday, we'll
November 5th,
see.
when it
November
cannot
5th.
come here fast
Can't
enough.
come soon for a number of reasons, right?
Yeah,
And I think everybody's ready
great,
for to put November 5th behind us.
a great number of
Guys, again, I appreciate you guys all tuning in, taking time out of your day. Hopefully this helped. Hopefully this gave a little bit of insight. I appreciate Emily jumping on. Make sure to subscribe and like the video. Subscribe for more. My goal is to try and do more stuff like this. Maybe we can get some council people on topics that people want to hear about. I'm open to that. My DMs are open. Make sure to follow me on Instagram as well. And I'm happy to and open to discussions like this. I think that this is great for the community. I think it's a great platform to get as much information out there as possible. So if you guys have a issue that you guys would like to be, kind of advertised this way or spoken about, let's start a conversation about what that looks like for the community. I think that this is a real opportunity to get it out there. Emily, any last words?
No, Tom, thanks for having me on. Again, I thanks for good calming my nerves, but I agree. Even when the election is over, we don't know what like Hoboken United Tenants is going to continue to look like, but they activated the tenant activism in me, so I'm here for the long haul. Self-motivated, but just because I love this little city, so we can definitely keep the conversations going. So thank you.
Great, guys. Thank you so much again. And we're gonna wrap up there. Emily, stay on. We're gonna end the stream, and guys, don't forget to follow along and let me know what else what else you guys would like to hear from this. I'm happy to do this again with any other issues. Talk to you guys soon.